look with me, won't you, in Genesis 45th chapter, one verse. Genesis, the 45th chapter, verse 24, King James Version. So he sent his brethren away, and they departed. And he said unto them, see that ye fall not out by the way. Grass withers, and the flowers thereof fadeth away, but the word of our God shall stand forever. I want to talk about don't fall out. Thank you so much, Christy, for taking us to the very presence of God and leading us in that worship experience. Don't fall out. The grass withers, flowers thereof fadeth away, but the word of our God shall stand forever. I grew up at a time when not only did children not get in grown folks' conversation, but when the grown folk came over, you had to leave the room. You had to go outside. You had to go somewhere. You couldn't look in their face. And if you were out and they start talking, if you looked in their mouth, they would say, is anybody talking to you? You look in their mouth. Well, on one of those episodes when my grandmother had a guest come to her house and I was on my way out, I overheard my grandmother say, now you know they don't fool with each other. They had a falling out. They fell out with each other. As a boy coming up in church, there were certain people you didn't put on the same committee. Why? Because some years back, they had fell out with each other. I didn't understand what falling out meant until I read this text. It is the idea of people quarreling with each other, but it also carries with it the idea of somebody quitting. This text says to us, as Joseph admonishes his brothers, that our job is too important. What we do is so essential that those of us who've been called to do the work of the kingdom, those of us who are in the family of God, the admonishment to us is don't fall out. Why is that significant to us as we are beginning again, as we start back over? What I think Joseph would have to say to us is that this occurs at a time when his brothers have come through the most difficult part. And as they're on their journey back, he says the temptation on the way back is to ease up. And if you're not careful, you will fall out with each other or you'll fall out on the way. You are familiar with Joseph's story. The beloved of his father, Joseph, the one who had been placed in a pit after he had gotten his vision of God elevating him. Joseph was on his way from his father to do a welfare check on his brothers. His brothers see him coming, and because he was adorned in the affection of his father, they get upset. They didn't like him. He had a dream. His brothers ended up putting him in a pit. They had decided to kill him, but instead of killing him, one of the brothers said, no, let's just put him in a pit, put some blood on his coat and take it back to daddy. He goes from that pit and is sold into slavery, works for a man called Potiphar. At Potiphar's house, God allows him to excel, but even after excelling, he is the victim of a lie, goes from there into prison. In prison, God again has his hand upon him, and the favor of God finds him, and he is moved from the prison up to the right hand of Pharaoh because he can interpret a dream. And can I tell you this? Let me just put this here, and you can shout with me on the way. The good thing about God in your life is that life can't hide you where favor can't find you. Somebody ought to tweet that right there. And as Joseph has the favor of God, his brothers come back because there is a famine in the land, and God has a way of setting you up with favor even when everybody else is in famine. His brothers come, and Joseph discovers that they are his brothers. And upon discovering that they are his brothers, he sets them up, hides something in their luggage. And as they go off, they come back, and Joseph reveals to them who he is. It is at this point where Joseph says to them, I need y'all to go back and tell my daddy, because my daddy is still alive. Go tell him that not only am I alive, but I'm doing very well. Go get my daddy and bring him back to me. And as Joseph gives his brothers gifts to go back to take to the father, he says to them on the way back home, y'all see to it that you don't fall out. Because Joseph's life is evidence to us that God has a way of allowing the shouts we experience on the mountaintop to sustain us when we got to go through life's valleys. Says to his brothers, don't fall out. And it is interesting to me that there are about 4 or 5 things that just leap as we are on a journey on this job that God has called us to, each of us, as we journey back from this difficult place. I just want you to be reminded of certain things that we don't fall out on the way. First thing I think that he would have us to know is that we have been redeemed. Now, it's interesting to me, and I want to shout, but I got to finish this text, that everything that we get is based upon the fact that our brother has a special relationship with the king. That's some stuff you just shout about yourself. And everything that we get is based upon the fact that our brother has a special relationship with the king. So that when we read about the life of Joseph's brothers, Joseph is a reminder, first of all, that we ought not fall out with each other because we have been redeemed. Let me tell you how the brothers had been redeemed. First of all, they had been released from prison because they had been accused of taking something that Joseph had hidden in their stuff. And so they were in prison, but they were released from prison. And when they had been released from prison, it means that they had been forgiven for their past deeds. And one of the reasons why you and I ought not fall out with each other is that you and I have been redeemed. We have been forgiven for our past deeds. And if God can forgive us for how we treated him, we ought to be able to forgive each other. Y'all, let me tell you what Joseph did. Joseph is a lesson on how to handle folk who treat you bad. It's interesting to me that Joseph doesn't post on Instagram or Facebook to tell the folk who treat him bad that it doesn't bother me. Because if it didn't bother you, you wouldn't be talking about it. You know what Joseph shows us? Joseph shows us that the best way to get past folk who mess you up is to succeed at what you're doing. You ain't. Because when you learn how to succeed, let me tell you what God will do. God has a way of bringing back the folk who mistreated to give you a chance to be a blessing to them. And what Joseph shows us is success is the best way to handle all of those. You don't have to mention it. You don't have to bring it up. You don't have to let them know. As a matter of fact, all you do is just keep on being blessed. And it's amazing to me how much time we waste trying to tell people we are past them. It is obvious you are not, or you wouldn't be spending that time. Joseph didn't go back and find his brothers because Joseph understood something. And here, this ought to release you and bless you from being worried about folk who tried to hurt you. The fact is that your destiny is not in their hand. And if they hadn't tried to mess you up, there was some stuff you got blessed by folk trying to mess with you about, because God has a deal with me. Every time the enemy messes with me, he blesses me. And what Joseph says to his brothers is, you meant it for evil, but God meant it for good. You call yourself setting traps, but what you didn't know was when you took me out of your hand, I fell right into God's hand. Every time you set a trap, it wasn't a trap, it was a passageway to another blessing. Shouts on the mountain sustain us when we go to the valley. We have been redeemed. He says, don't fall out because we've been forgiven. I don't need everybody, but I wish I had somebody in here who can testify that this morning when you woke up with brand new mercies. And here's the thing about God. God has not given you a second chance. He's given you another chance, because I messed up my second chance about 13 minutes after my first chance. Anybody here know he's the God of another chance? I messed up last week, but he gave me another chance. I messed up yesterday, but he gave me another chance. I messed up this morning, but he gave me another chance. I've been redeemed. But I haven't just been redeemed, I've been restored. Because let me tell you, here it is. I've been redeemed, and when I got redeemed, it gave me a relationship with God. But I've been restored so that now I've got fellowship with God. He says we ought not fall, now this is him talking to his brothers, he said you ought not fall out because we are family. And I just didn't bring you back and say, I forgot about what you've done, but I have restored you. And if you're talking about something to shout about, y'all, we've been restored. It's one thing to forgive somebody. Forgive says, I'm not going to hold it against you. But restoration says, I'm going to treat you like it never happened. All right. Forgiveness says, okay, you took that out of my house. And as much as I want to, I'm not going to make it. There's about to be some furniture moving up in here, some clothes rustling right through here. But I ain't going to do that. That's forgiveness. Restoration says, I'm going to open the door and you can come sit back at the table. Joseph says, I just didn't not hold what you did against me, but I treated you like you were my brothers. And y'all, here it is. The reason Joseph says this to his brothers is that they're going to go home. And once before, he had overheard them fussing with each other. He says, I don't want you quitting and I don't want you quarreling. I don't want you blaming each other for what went wrong. And on the way home, the temptation is to say, because Reuben, the brother who had saved him, would say, well, y'all know if we'd have done what I told you. So here's what he says. I don't want you fighting because we are family. Here is some pastoral preaching. Lord, deliver me from church members who brag about how much they don't need other members. There are some of us who major in cutting one another. My mama had a PhD in whipping. And I'll tell you what kind of whipping if you see me outside of church. I was her dissertation. Amen. The one thing you got whipped the worst for is fighting with your family. Because God has designed that we do need each other. And it was on my mother's heart that you were going to love each other, even if she had to beat you to do it. Let me tell you, before you become too critical of mama, God can put you in a place where you have to have somebody else in the family. And there's just a certain way that family treats each other. We don't fall out because not only have we been redeemed, but we've been restored. You are part of the family of God. I need you. You need me. We need each other to survive. God has designed that we're going to make it together. Lord, deliver the church. If the world can treat each other better than the church can, if there's any place where somebody ought to know that they can be loved, affirmed, warm, and welcome, it ought to be in this house. He says, you've been redeemed, but you've been restored, and because we are family, don't fall out. But then he says you've been resourced. I like this. I like this. Watch what he says. He says to his brothers, don't y'all fall out. You've been redeemed. I've released you from your prison. I've told you but then you've been restored. We're family again. You're back to my. But then he says, let me give you what you need. But not just what you need. It's a famine. There are some people starving at home. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you something to give to the people who need it along the way. This is why I love being in the church. It's because we got something that the world is starving for. And what God has done is God has equipped us. He has resourced us. We have the resources for which a dying world so desperately needs. He says there are folks starving at home, but he doesn't let his brothers leave. They take wagons full of stuff. And here it is. Here is a shout right here. You talking about it ain't over till it's over. For some people to go in, they're in jail. They've been released. They discovered that the one in charge has a connection to them, but he says, I'm not going to just turn you loose empty-handed. I'm going to give you something. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you enough to be a blessing to somebody else. There ought to be somebody in here who gets excited. It would have just been enough if God had given it to me, but one of the reasons I don't keep it for myself is that God has given us something that the world is hungry for. I tell you why I stay with the church, and we give to the Salvation Army. We give to the CCA. We give to the Goodwill. We give to other stuff. But y'all, let me tell you what we can do. We will never feed as many people as Salvation Army and Goodwill. We will never hire as many people as Goodwill. We'll never build as many houses at the Red Cross. But let me tell you what we can do. We can go tell it on the mountain and everywhere. They can close, but they can't tell the story of Jesus like we can. We can tell the story that we have been redeemed by the blood of the Lamb. We can tell the story about how one Friday he did die, but that's not how the story ends. On the third day, he got up. Well, let me tell you, we've been resourced, we've been redeemed, we've been restored, but we've been reassigned. It's in the text. I'm not making it up. Well, watch what he does. His brothers had come to get some food. Their father's at home starving. There's a famine in the land. He sees who they are. He restores them back to the family. But as they are going home, he not only sends food back with them, but he gives them a new assignment that they've got to correct the lie that he is dead. Your assignment is to correct the lie because there's some false information out there. And on your way home, I want you to tell the truth because the best way to overcome a lie is by telling the truth. And I used to pastor, well, one of the burdens of being an older preacher is you have thousands of stories. When I used to pastor in Crockett, the lady named Miss Georgia David, a wonderful lady who I love, who had an incredible gift for just sharing truth. Sister David said one day the truth and a lie went swimming. They went skinny dipping, and the lie stole the truth's clothes and his bicycle. She said, that's why, number one, it takes so long for a lie. It takes so long for the truth to get there. She said, by the time the truth move a block, the lie done gone around the world. And she said, and when they looked up and saw the truth, somebody said, there come the naked truth right there. Insert laughter here. But the truth of the matter is, the lie was out that the son was dead. So he says to his brothers, you go back and correct the lie. And throughout our journey, our job is to tell the truth so the lie can't stick around. You act like you don't believe me. You heard the lie. The soldiers were telling it, that the disciples stole the body. They told that lie. That they put guards around it and they were paid to tell the lie. But the truth is that on the third day they dropped like dead men because when they rolled the tomb away, the son had been risen. The truth is he's not dead, but he's at the right hand of the Father interceding. Our job is to tell the truth because truth is, the lie got out that only certain folk can come to our church. The lie got out that only certain folk are welcome in church, and that means that the good folk can come and the bad folk can't come. But you and I know that if by bad we mean folk who are sin, none of us could get in. The lie is out that you got to be perfect to come to God's house. But the truth is that God specializes in messed up folk like me and you. The lie is out that the church has no relevance and that there are other organizations that will take our place. But God has not promised to come back for anybody else but the church. That's the truth. And our job, the lie is that the son is dead, but our job is to tell the truth that God is still in the business. The lie is out. That God doesn't still work miracles, but I wish I had somebody who'd help me tell the truth. That if you want to see a miracle, you ain't got to see water turn to wine. You want to see a miracle, you ain't got to go to the Red Sea. If you want to see a miracle, don't stop by the lion's den. Look at me. I am a living miracle. Well, let me bid you good day. You've been kind. Let me bid you good day. We've been redeemed. We've been restored. We've been resourced. We've been reassigned. But y'all, we can't fall out with each other because the Father is at home waiting to receive us. He says, see to it that you don't fall out, because earth has an expectation that we do well. You see, when Jesus went back, he didn't leave a second plan. That the church has within it the story that will redeem the whole world. And God doesn't have a second plan. But not only does earth has an expectation, but heaven has an expectation. The good news is that even though he does not have to have us, God is counting on us. You see, when you read this text about Joseph, when his brothers left their father Jacob, or Israel, Jacob was under the understanding that his son had died. And Jacob is waiting because he sent 11 sons to check on his one. And Jacob is at home waiting for his children to return. And y'all, I got some good news for you. The good news is that we have a heavenly Father that is at home getting things ready for our return. Good morning, children. May the Lord bless you real good. It's a first Sunday, traditional Sunday morning, and I got an old Baptist preacher raising up in me. May the Lord bless you real good. But on my way home, I just want to remind somebody that the Father is waiting on us. And so I bid you good morning by saying, sing the wondrous love of Jesus. Sing his mercy and his grace. I'm closing now when I tell you that in those mansions, bright and blessed, he has prepared for us a place. When we all get to heaven, what a day of rejoicing that will be. When we all see Jesus, we'll sing and shout the victory. While we walk this pilgrim's pathway, clouds will overspread the sky. But when traveling days are over, not a worry and not a sigh. When we all get to heaven, what a day of rejoicing will be. When we all see my Jesus, we gon' sing and shout the victory. Some things down here I just don't understand. I don't understand why I have to cry sometime. I don't understand why bad things happen to really good people. I don't understand why good people suffer and it looks like bad folk do well. I don't understand why it looks like wicked people prosper and good people go through. But by and by, when the morning comes, when all the saints of God are gathering home, we will tell the story about how we overcome, and we'll understand it better by and by. Is there anybody here that's waiting on the by and by? Anybody here gonna hang on in there? Anybody here gonna trust God through it all? Ain't he all right? I said, ain't he all right? Ain't he, ain't he, ain't he, ain't he? Ain't he all right? I don't understand right now, but I'm gonna wait for the by and by. I don't see everything right now, but I'll know in the by and by. I've watched loved ones die, and I don't understand why. I saw COVID take some good people and leave bad people alone. But when the morning comes, I'll understand it better. By and by, I'll understand it better. But I'm curious now. I'm going to my seat. I used to keep a folder of all the things I didn't understand. And I said to myself, when I see Jesus, I'm going to ask him why some children died. When I see Jesus, I was going to ask him why Ethiopians had to starve. When I see Jesus, I was going to ask him why he let AIDS run rampant. But I got a feeling that when I see Jesus, none of that will matter. When I see Jesus, it'll just be amen. When I see the one that died for me, hung bled on